I don't know. That sounds like a Mississippi State type thing to have as your history. And
Welcome to My God a Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell, Hunter Jones, and I preview Georgia's top 10 showdown with Ole Miss. We talk through what we're looking for in the game, and we answer questions from you, our listeners. As always, remember to check out the newly redesigned MyGottaPodcast.com to see our latest merch. And you can follow us on social media at My God a Podcast. Finally, we'd love for you to check out our presenting sponsor, Oxia Time, at oxiatime.com. That's AXIATIME.com. Now, let's join the conversation in progress.
Here we are. We have a special guest with us this evening, Jim.
Special guest in the house, Ole Miss, the Fighting Hunters. So we got to have Hunt the Jones on the episode. Hunter, welcome back to My God a Podcast.
yes, great to be back.
I figured that Jim and I were like recalling the histories with My God a Podcast, and we kind of figured out that we hadn't had Hunter, although technically John's not with us now either. So we're gonna have to resolve that one, Jim, because we hadn't had Hunter and John on this season, and we kind of contributed to Georgia's slow start to the season. We gotta get right. We gotta get right. It's good to have you back.
Yes, I'm glad to be back.
AP Jones now. We call him AP Jones around these parts.
Right.
That's right.
Hey,
Part of why I'm drinking what I'm drinking tonight.
Absolutely. What are you drinking? Are you drinking a hot toddy?
No, not a hot toddy tonight. I just went with little Blanton's because I needed something that I knew was going to go right today.
It has been one of those days for us all, I feel like.
Yes, it has.
Jim, what are you drinking?
I got with Hunter on. Hunter, this one's for you. And I've been saving this one for this game. So this is a Old Elk Wheat Lovers. It was a single barrel, and I also added the elk head pour on. So I'm gonna pour from the elk head.
Nice. I have on my side, I actually have the Blue Note, the store pick Blue Note, which is made in Memphis, which is a big city for Ole Miss, right? Right, Hunter? Like, it can kind of lead us into some of the fun facts, right?
It is. It is. It's not too far from Oxford. Oxford's kind of grown now. I can't really speak for what the Ole Miss people have going for them right now, but at least when I was in school, Memphis was a big destination for our fraternity outings. Various bid night trips to Beale Street. Don't ask me to recall the details.
Nice.
We won't subject you to such to such stories. Your students would have a lot of questions, I feel like.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, for those who don't know, although I feel like everyone knows, but
let's pretend this is their first time seeing Hunter.
Yeah. So if you don't know Hunter, Hunt the Jones on Twitter, uniform Twitter extraordinaire, graphic designer, has helped us out, bounce ideas off of him countless times. Friend of the show, been on multiple times. But you have a unique spot for you as attending Ole Miss, but then also coming into Georgia fandom as well. So I know it's probably a weird week for you too.
Yeah, for sure it's a weird week, and I mean I really haven't had to face this week in all of my tenure as a Georgia fan because for those that don't know, I did attend Ole Miss. I'm from Mississippi, born and raised here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, which is a lot different from the rest of Mississippi for all you Mississippi haters out there. I see you out there on the Twitters. But I went to Ole Miss for undergrad and for graduate school. And that is where I met my wife, who is from the Atlanta area. She was from Swanee, went to Collins Hill High School. And we met at Ole Miss. And in 2014, she decided she liked me enough to take me around to her family in Georgia. And that's kind of where my Georgia interest began, was the 2014 season. Our way to visit her family was to go to Georgia games.
Mm.
So I got my first taste of Georgia games. They weren't that great. I
Yeah.
can't say it was a great football watching experience, but it's for somebody who is, a fan of history and college football pageantry, it doesn't get much better than Athens. And the hospitality that all Georgia fans, especially, my family who have been season ticket holders since the 1980s, showed me that first time I went. I kind of fell in love with the place. And the tradition of Georgia. And like I said, it became part of our family tradition. So
Yeah.
it's more than just fandom to me. It's that side of my family. That's how we get together. That's how we have fellowship is at Georgia games. And so since 2014, I've kind of been slowly ingratiated myself best I can into the Georgia side of the fandom. And it just so happened that I'm going to call myself the good luck charm because I came in right at the lowest of the low and rode all the way to the top with it. So it's been great.
I think
That's
we
awesome.
just asked Hunter what's his Georgia story.
I think we did. We just gave him a roundabout. He answered the question.
Man. Yeah, I actually hadn't heard it. I didn't know the 2014 Hunter. I don't know that I had gotten that I knew that a specific year. So I actually, am I crazy? I think that's the same year British Bulldog discovered the
I
ducks.
was just about to say, I feel like that it's all meant to be. What I hear you saying, Hunter, is that you were always one of us.
That's right.
And so for those of you that are going to see us at the game this weekend, my wife, shout out to Meg Jones. She will be in attendance this weekend, but she will be wearing blue. She has a very how do I put it? She has a different relationship now with Georgia than she did. So as a kid, she was a diehard Georgia fan, barking at people as a little girl. But her freshman year, our freshman year at Ole Miss, was the last time Ole Miss played at Sanford Stadium. And so when we were freshmen, we didn't know each other, but I've heard the story now multiple times. Her and her sorority sisters made the trip to Athens and tailgated with her family, where she'd been tailgating all of her life, and sat in our seats where she'd been sitting all of her life. And some fans that were not regulars to the section actually had some pretty vulgar things to say about her and her friends in front of her stepdad and her uncles and all the friends. And it almost started a brawl amongst Georgia fans because, they didn't like them talking to their daughter like that. And so she's got a bad taste in her mouth for Georgia from that moment on. And now that they're playing Ole Miss in Athens again, that's her favorite story to tell this week, with how much she hated that experience and why she's going to be wearing blue this weekend.
Wow.
I feel like it was the Bobo guy that sits behind me.
It probably
was the same guy.
It probably was. I'd say that that person most likely didn't go to the University of Georgia and does not represent the large contingency of folks. We try to be fairly hospitable. You talk a little trash here and there, but like there's always a fine line that being intimidating atmosphere, there's always a line you just don't cross, and vulgarity is usually probably right up against that.
Yeah. We've all got them. Oh shoot, man, I've got stories from college with Kim and I of getting into it with other Georgia students.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Sorry, Meg the Jones. Maybe one day we can win you over, but you guys being double rebs, right? What do they call it? We're double dogs. What do they call the double rebs?
I don't know if we have a term for it, but I like the sound of double rebs.
Okay.
Got a nice little ring to it.
We'll probably never get her back, but there's definitely, is there going to be a house divided when the little one comes along? Like what's going on there?
No, I don't think there's going to be a house divided. I think it's just kind of this week that's got her fired up. She'll never admit to it, but I've caught her a couple times when she said she doesn't want to watch the game or whatever. I'll, take a minute to go walk into the bedroom to see what she's doing, and she's got the game on, and she's like, "What is good? Why can't we score?" I think it was the Auburn game that she was really getting fired up on her own in there watching, and I'm like, "See, you are a fan."
The Wii does a lot of heavy lifting there, Meg the Jones.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to lift heavy objects right now. That's great.
Well, you also slipped something in there into your question, John, around also soon to be father and mother. So congrats on that. A baby Jones on the way. Baby the Jones on the way.
Baby the Jones, yes. So
this kid is going to be the most amazing kid ever.
April 5th is the date right now. I'm hoping that that's pretty accurate because that means I get a master's baby.
Yes. Immediate master's fit will be ready that weekend.
I can't wait for the amazing fits that this kid is going to rock.
Just wait till the first birthday. If it's a master's baby, and see, Meg the Jones will even agree to me with this one. She's on board a hole-in-one first birthday party with master's theme.
I like it.
Nice. That's awesome.
It's going to be glorious for both of us.
I love it.
Perfect.
Again, congratulations formally, podcast.
Yes, congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Why don't we run down? We could start running down our matchup, and we got an Ole Miss guy with us, Ole Miss grad with us, who can help guide the way through all this. So kickoff Saturday, 7 p.m. Between the Hedges at Dooley Field. Dogs come in at 9-0, 6-0 in the SEC. And Ole Miss comes in 8-1, 5-1 in the SEC. The only loss to Alabama. The Dogs are number 1, but 2 in the playoff. Ole Miss is 10th across the board in both polls as well as the CFP. So with it being a night game on ESPN, you got for those who are watching at home and can't make it, got Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit, and Holly Rowe. The official hashtag, John, make sure I do not forget to tweet with the official hashtag this week, is hashtag Miss versus UGA.
Jim, knock on your head.
Knock on the head. Yeah, I'll forget. I need to set a reminder. All-time history. So Georgia leads the series all-time 32-13-1, according to Georgia. But as we say on My Got a Podcast, it's not a rivalry unless the teams disagree. But this one is backwards. Ole Miss says the record is 32-12-1. They give themselves one less win credit. And so I noticed that when I was reading through the Ole Miss game notes that they had one less. And so I read a little deeper to see why. And it's because I guess we credit the 2016 game that Ole Miss went the last game between these two teams, but there were sanctions. And so Ole Miss is
vacated, baby. The Ole Miss way.
So Ole Miss vacated it. So I thought that was kind of funny that Georgia counts it, but Ole Miss doesn't. So interesting.
Shout out to Hugh Freeze. Thanks, Hugh Freeze.
And so that was that last meeting. So that last meeting was September 24th in 2016, 45-14 win by the Rebels in Oxford. That was Kirby's first year. The Dogs were undefeated going into that game. I think that was the week after that. The fourth down touchdown pass from Jacob Eason to Isaiah McKenzie beat Missouri at Missouri. Following week, we went and got waxed in Oxford. But hey, it was vacated. It didn't actually happen.
It didn't count.
Exactly.
Wish we could go back and replay the whole season after that.
Yeah, seriously. So the weather looks like decent temperature wise, high of 63, low of 52. I haven't looked back, but when I looked earlier today, my recommendation is to bring a poncho. I saw like there is some light rain in the forecast throughout the day. So I don't know, monitor that throughout the week and apparently listen to John, because John, like when you warned me to bring a jacket and I don't, it rains. So we'll lean to you as the week progresses.
As I will advise you in the early morning hours of what the weather is like, because that's the way that it drifts over.
Exactly.
So my question is it baseball pullover weather?
Ooh, that's a good question. So hilarious thing about that, Hunter, when you posted the picture earlier tonight to say that we had a special episode of My Got a Podcast coming with a picture of us from the Tennessee game last year, I actually had the same thought because I was like, ooh, I wore my baseball pullover to that game. So I don't know. It probably was this past weekend. Because this past weekend I was all worried about getting cold, and it did not. So yeah, it may be. It just may be because it's not. I don't know. It looks like it'll be a little colder than last weekend. But still not too bad.
Yeah.
You might actually need a jacket, a
The
light jacket.
humidity is probably what's going to be more annoying.
Right. All right. Well, that's it for the matchup. But I know, JP, I think you had some fun facts and some things you kind of wanted to bounce off of Hunter since we've got the Ole Miss grad on.
I did. We have an Ole Miss person, so we can do some fact checking on some of these things. Hunter, one of the things that we came across on the fun facts was that Ole Miss is the first university in the Southeast that hired a female professor. They hired a woman in 1885, which I thought was kind of crazy. That Ole Miss was the first place that happened. It looks like that. The other thing when we were researching this stuff, Oxford, Mississippi, is actually named for Oxford College over in jolly old England, where they had hoped that the reason that they named the folks named the city Oxford was in an attempt to attract academic like minds to the university that they were recently opening, which is the only college or only university in the state. So I thought that was kind of crazy. Had you talked about that with any of your? Have you come across that in any of your studies down there?
I had it was kind of a story. I'm not sure how validated it is, but you kind of hinted at it that they actually named the city Oxford in hopes of being granted the university when the governor was going to, weigh the options of where to place the university. They went ahead and named it Oxford to try to make it more attractive for a university.
And it worked. You got scammed, huh? Actually, funny enough, speaking of the English ties, have you seen any double-decker buses rolling around Oxford?
We actually have a bunch of double-decker buses and a festival. I don't know how familiar. I'm trying to think of the Georgia equivalent, because I know here on the coast, we actually just had it this past weekend, which is why we weren't at the Missouri game. The Peter Anderson Art Festival here in Ocean Springs is a really big festival where they set up booths and people walk all around downtown. Well, Oxford has an equivalent in the spring, and it's called the Double Decker Festival.
I mean, that sounds pretty cool. I mean, a bunch of double deckers riding around. So I guess that they imported those from England in 1994. It sounds like. So it's been around for a little bit.
You got to
go
with the. You're going to name it Oxford. You got to run with it.
I say 94, recent.
Yeah, 1994, pretty recent. Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
But I thought that was kind of cool that they are layering in those ties. Here's one for you, Hunter. Do either of you enjoy Nukes or McAllister's?
Very much.
The first of those restaurants were born in Oxford.
Look at
McAllister's was founded in 1989, and Nukes was founded in 2004. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Oxford is also home to the oldest, I believe, the oldest department store. Is it in the? Do you know which is it? It's the oldest department store in the South.
Is it Nielsen?
Nielsen's. Yep, it's located on the square. It was established in 1839.
Talk about the Peter Millar spot for all of our apparel fans out there.
Yeah,
you want the Ole Miss Peter Millar look? You're going to Nielsen.
Do they have shirts and things that you can't get anywhere else?
Yes, and actually, I've been meaning to get up there, but it's hard. It's harder to get to Oxford than it is to get to Athens. Pretty much from where we live, Oxford is a solid 6-hour drive, whereas it's the same 6 hours to get to Meg's family's house in Atlanta. So we don't ever really get the chance to make it up to Oxford unless it's a point. But like I said, Georgia games are kind of our way during the fall to visit her family. So we always lean on the side of coming to Georgia versus coming to Oxford. But they do, they've got the football helmet. I know that you can buy Georgia's version of it online, but you cannot find anywhere online the Ole Miss version of the Peter Millar apparel with the actual football helmet embroidered on the chest. But at Nielsen's, you can find it there, and they've got the navy helmet and the powder blue helmet as an option for that embroidery.
Nice. I like how fun facts have also become like trivia and to see if Hunter knows it. That's amazing. Continue. Sorry.
A couple other notes, and then we can kind of move on to our history section, but our further history section. The original stained glass from Tiffany's, Breakfast at Tiffany's, famous of Breakfast at Tiffany's, is actually located in one of the halls that we were talking about. That you sounded like you knew that one.
Yeah, Ventress Hall. It used to be the Fine Arts or Art Department's building. It actually isn't in, at least to my last knowledge, it's not in use for classroom use anymore because it's become more of a historical site. But anybody that's ever been to Oxford, maybe y'all made that trip down to the Grove last time the Dogs played. It's right on the corner of the Grove, between the Grove and what we call the Circle. And it's the one that looks like a castle.
Awesome. Yeah, that was gifted to the university in memory of the Ole Miss students that fought in the Civil War in 1891 by Delta Gamma sorority. So that was pretty cool. And speaking of Civil War, there's a lot of connections with Ole Miss. You mentioned in the podcast before the podcast, you were talking about how there's a lot of Civil War kind of items around. Is there anything like a particular note that you can think of off the top of your head that we should call out for the Civil War, kind of artifacts around campus?
I know a lot of the buildings were used for various purposes. A couple hospital type buildings. I think even the Lyceum, which is kind of the trademark building of the university that's on the academic crest, and it's at the head of the circle with the big white columns. It was used, I believe, as a hospital type building, and then if I'm not mistaken, I think there was even one building that was used as like a morgue.
Yeah,
I don't remember which one it was.
That was Fairley Hall, actually, which the original building in Fairley Hall was used as a morgue during the Civil War. It was demolished in 1958, but there's a plaque there that talks about it. The Lyceum Hall you were talking about was also used as a hospital, which was a location near Fairley, to basically bring the dead to Fairley Hall. So
and I do know that behind the old basketball arena, which we called the Tad Pad, before they built the pavilion, there is a graveyard with Civil War soldiers buried in it. I don't know for a fact if it's the university graves or not, but there is a graveyard behind the Tad Pad, kind of on the south side of campus, that has Civil War ties to it.
The Tad Pad, that's a cool name, Jim. We gotta come up with better names for our basketball facilities.
The Steg.
The Steg. Yeah. All right, last one. You mentioned this location earlier. You mentioned the Circle. Do you know what that was originally used for?
I don't know where this is going with original use, but I do know that it's kind of the primary academic focal point of the campus.
I think your answer was much more academic than what I saw. So allegedly, and I read it on the internet, Hunter, but this is why I wanted to verify. Trust but verify, right? Apparently, the original use of the Circle was for students to originally keep their livestock while they were in class. So they would bring horses, chickens, cows, etc., and that's where they would stay while the students went to class.
I don't know. That sounds like a Mississippi State type thing to have as your history, and not necessarily at Ole Miss.
Horses.
Goats? I don't know. I mean, maybe. But another fun fact, though, for anybody that ever gets to make a trip to Oxford, in the Circle, you will find a brick with both mine and Meg the Jones names on it. As double Rebel alumni, we have a brick now. So Fun
Nice.
fact.
Nice.
That is the best. That's the best fun fact to end on, Jim.
Agreed. All right. Well, I'm going to take a stab at doing our history from the unofficial, official, but it's actually official historian of My God podcast, Jason Hasty, and I think we're going to go with Hasty's Hargrid history. And we'll see if that sticks. All right. So this is Jason's submission this week. So since World War I, only 3 of Georgia's head football coaches have gone on to take a position as head coach at another university when their time in Athens was over. Joel Hunt coached Georgia for only 1 year in 1938, then was head coach at Wyoming in 1939. Mark Richt was head coach at Miami from 2016 through 2018. Harry Mayer, who coached Georgia from 1928 through 1937, went on to coach Ole Miss for 7 seasons. Mayer is also the only former Georgia head coach since before World War I to take another position as head coach and then coach against Georgia. Harry Mayer played center for Knute Rockne from 1919 to 1921 when Notre Dame went 28-1 and the line was nicknamed the Seven Mules, which I know we were talking about this a little bit beforehand. I had no idea that Harry Mayer played for Knute Rockne. So news to me.
Yes, seriously.
He then came to Athens in 1924 as an assistant to George Kidd Woodruff and was elected by players and alumni to serve as Georgia's head coach when Woodruff resigned following the 1927, which we're talking like some major Georgia names in history. Everyone knows Mayer and Woodruff, also the Woodruff practice fields. So these are definitely some big names. Mayer's 1929 team defeated Yale 15-0 in Sanford Stadium's dedication game. After that, he was offered a lifetime contract by Georgia. After he was pressured to resign following the 1937 season, Mayer would joke that in order to get out of the contract, Georgia had to have him declared legally dead. But after leaving Georgia, Mayer took the head coaching position at Ole Miss. The Ole Miss and Georgia weren't regular opponents until after World War II. Mayer coached his Ole Miss team in 3 games against Georgia in 1940 and 1941 in Athens, and in 1942 in Memphis. So Memphis, Hunter, you said that was close by. He was 1-1-1 in those 3 games, winning the 1940 game, tying the 1941 game, and losing to the eventual national champions in Memphis in 1942. So what I wanted to add to that, so this is crazy to me. So do you guys know who the coach was of that 1942 Rose Bowl winning national championship team for Georgia?
Wasn't it Butts?
It was Butts. So I decided that game in Memphis was the Butts Mayer Bowl. What? So
I'm surprised that wasn't in his notes. That was a missed opportunity.
So pretty crazy. So yeah, there was actually a game, Mayer versus Butts. Pretty crazy. That's what we got for Hasty's Hargrid history. So thanks again, Jason. Another excellent submission.
Excellent submission. That nobody would have seen that coming.
No, never. All right, we can move on. A couple of news and notes. I'm going to do a quick basketball. I'll do less than a minute on basketball. The Hoop Dogs began their season today. We're recording on Monday. Lost the season opener against Oregon, 82-71 in Las Vegas. Oregon's pretty good. They were overmatched, but a lot of newcomers. But if you're in town for the Ole Miss game this weekend, the home opener for the Dogs is Friday at 7:00 at the Steg against Wake Forest. So if you're in town, maybe you can go head over to the Steg and cheer on the Hoop Dogs Friday night. All right, Kirby's press conference. He opened talking about basketball and then congratulating women's soccer. They won the SEC tournament this week. So congrats to them. Huge day for the soccer team. And we actually have a neighbor who plays on the team, by the way. She's a junior. Let's see. Only other thing I jotted down was on Jamon Dumas-Johnson. So we know JDJ left the Missouri game injured. He has a fractured forearm, but I thought this was interesting. When he got asked about his timetable to return or would he return, Kirby said he's going to try to find some innovative ways to get back and be able to play, but won't know the extent of that until a couple of more days. So I have that no idea. I assume that means maybe like playing in a cast or something, but I'm not.
I was about to say, I wonder if we're going to see him in one of those like old school big clubs where his whole arm is just a club that he can beat people with.
Exactly.
An old school club.
I mean,
I think that what he's alluding to is something that I noticed in there was a guy over the summer that did a facilities tour with the university athletic department. I can't remember the guy's name, Jim. What was the guy's name that came through and did the he's like a big YouTuber that does a lot of facilities.
The guy. Okay, I can't remember what his actual name is, but his handle on TikTok is like destroying that guy.
Yeah.
He was the punter at UCF,
right?
Or used to be.
He came through and was showcasing a lot of stuff. One of the things, maybe it was his video, maybe I'm just making it up, and that's where I thought I saw it. But one of the things that the university has at its disposal is a hyperbaric chamber, and that is that has a number of big time impacts on athletes' recovery on a number of things. One of the things is hyperbaric treatments for like CTE and like concussions and stuff like that, because the way that the oxygen pushes into the body. But that's one of the things that can help speed up recovery, including bones and all sorts of things. So I have a feeling that the university is exercising hyperbaric treatments.
Interesting. Let's see. I don't have any Lane Kiffin press conference notes or anything, but another fun fact: Ole Miss is the only SEC team, and Lane Kiffin is one of only 2 current SEC head coaches that Kirby Smart has not defeated. So, John, I think you mentioned that. We talked about that a while back. I think you talked about it as like the last Infinity Stone or something along those lines for Kirby. Ole Miss, the only SEC team that has not defeated, but. Yeah. So on the line. That's what's on the line. Let's get into the matchup.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it.
All right. Offense. What are we looking for when Georgia has the ball? And Hunter, you can definitely help us out here. First off, I'm curious if these are even the right guys to mention on the Ole Miss defense. So the leading tackler is Trey Washington, junior safety. He has got 59 total tackles and 2 picks. John Saunders, a senior safety, leads the team with 3 interceptions, also has 48 total tackles. And then Jared Ivey is a senior defensive end. He leads the team with 5.5 sacks. I don't know, any other like disruptors in the defense that you're aware of that we need to be watching out for?
Well, I think you definitely hit the one with Ivy. He's kind of been coming on strong the more the year has gone on. He's found his way to really be a disruptor there at the D-line position. He talks to the media a little bit. I saw a quote from him today where Lane's kind of got it pumped into the Ole Miss guys' mind that they don't need to give anybody any kind of material, and you'll probably see multiple iterations of Lane tweet something along the lines of no rat poison with emojis this week. So you're not going to get a lot out of those guys, but Jared Ivey is one of the big disruptors on defense.
Okay. And then I know, so they're in their first year under new defensive coordinator, Pete Golding, who came over from Alabama. He was at Bama as a defensive coordinator from 2018 to 2012. I got a random one for you, Hunter. Do you know, like, does Pegues play a lot? Do you know JJ Pegues?
You're talking about JJ? Yeah, he is a defensive lineman, and he is also a super athlete. He actually played quarterback for a couple different packages when he was at Auburn under Gus Malzahn. And when he was at Oxford High School, he was like the go-to athlete, the guy at Oxford High School. He actually is from Oxford, so he's kind of an Ole Miss hometown guy. A lot of Ole Miss people joke, especially Oxford people, that he's the mayor of Oxford because he doesn't really go anywhere in Oxford where he doesn't know anybody or, have something to say to somebody. So he's a good kid. He's a freak athlete for how big he is and kind of what he can do athletically. You don't see guys that big be able to move like that a lot of the times.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a real deal.
Well, and he's am I am I correct in that he started out at Auburn and transferred to Ole Miss, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
because I remember like in season 1 of My God a Podcast, when we first previewed the first time we played Auburn, when we had a podcast, John, he was one of the guys that you like called out to watch for Auburn. And he was a tight end back then, from what I remember. So getting back to your like athletic ability, now he's playing defense for Ole Miss.
I was going to say Pegues was that I knew that name sounded familiar.
Yeah, same guy.
Yeah.
So
he's been known to take some offensive snaps for the Rebs too. Lane Kiffin kind of likes to sneak him in there sometimes and kind of weaponize him if he can.
Hopefully they're ready for that because they saw him in the previous season.
Yeah. So okay. So is there anything? I don't know. I guess what are you guys looking for the Georgia offense to do against these guys? Like I don't know, Hunter, if there's anything that like Ole Miss would be like susceptible to. You would think as far as knowing what they do and what Georgia does.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that Georgia should be able to do is they should just be able to kind of lean on Ole Miss. Ole Miss doesn't have the horses up front right now to kind of be as effective in what Pete wants to do. He's used to having those Alabama type guys to run that defense. And I mean, don't get me wrong, the Ole Miss defense is much improved, and they kind of have been getting better as the season goes, but they're really, really inconsistent. They ebb and flow. They might look really good one week and then really bad the next week. And I think it's just kind of, they don't have the guys yet. They're going to be well coached. They're going to know what to do and be on their assignment. It's just a matter of actually having the guy to execute it every time, especially when you play a team like Georgia.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really feast or famine for Georgia. I think personally, Ole Miss is pretty susceptible in the middle of the field. They don't have the size, I think, that Pete is necessarily happy with right now to run the defense that he wants to run. And that kind of makes them a little more vulnerable up the middle, especially to the tight end. A&M kind of ate them up with their tight end this week. And I think they kind of got lucky to get out of there with a win because they were at the end. There was a fingertip drop that the tight end from A&M had that would have been scary if he would have caught it.
I would feel a lot better about that statement if we had one Mr. Bowers playing this weekend. But hey, Delpa brother out. I'm sure he can take advantage of such things as well.
I mean, you do gotta watch out for sacks. I don't quote me on this, but I think I was looking at something earlier where Ole Miss is pretty high up there in the amount of sacks that they get. They're pretty disruptive when it comes to that kind of getting a pass rush. And they don't turn the ball over as much as they get turnovers. So I know that's something that Kirby also talks about that he kind of looks for as a telling stat. So Ole Miss gets more turnovers than they turn the ball over. So the defense is doing pretty good with that. They do drop a lot of interceptions, especially ones that would win games for them if they would just catch the ball. So they might bail Carson out if he's off a little bit because, like I said, Pete's kind of putting bodies back there to get the length and to get the size, and I think he doesn't have the skill as a result right now that he would like to have back there.
Got it. Yeah, I know. One of the things I think Kirby talked about was how many fumbles that Ole Miss forces. Apparently, they've forced a lot of fumbles. So, JP, what are you anything you're looking for on the offensive side?
On the offense side, I'm hoping if you look at everything on paper, like with the net yards per play or whatever, like on paper, like Ole Miss and Mississippi are basically the same team. We were looking at that.
They're exactly the same team. I know what you meant. You said Ole Miss and Mississippi. You meant Ole Miss and Missouri.
Oh, sorry, Ole Miss and Missouri. Sorry. Yes. You speak JP.
I speak JP.
Yes, Ole Miss and Missouri on paper are basically the same team, and from a net yards per play, what that means is that we can expect them to come out and play pretty good, and very similar to how Ole Miss did in terms of the success rate and all all those kinds of things. I think that the one area, and Hunter, I'm curious to run this off of you. One of the things that I saw in the Josh's, and shout out Dog Stats, he puts together a lot of these analyses for these games and the matchups and all those kinds of things. And one of the things that I saw in the scatter plot that is everything was that when you're looking at all those things, it seemed like that Ole Miss appeared to be more susceptible to the explosive play on defense, more so than Missouri was.
That's 100% accurate. Like I said, you're going to get a really it's either going to be really assignment sound, because I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, Ole Miss needs different caliber players to be as successful with the defensive scheme that they're running as they want to be. But they've done a good job coaching those guys up. They're going to fly to the football. They're going to chase the football, even to their own detriment. At sometimes they're going to over pursue. They're going to bust coverages here and there. So they have been susceptible to the big play.
Yeah. They've been very similar to some of the teams that we've played in terms of what their defense has given up points per game. Very similar to Kentucky, very similar to Missouri. Kentucky's allowing 22 points a game. Missouri's allowing 24 points a game. Ole Miss is right at 22.9 points per game. So what am I looking for, Jim? All right, so I expect that Carson Beck this is going to be a day for Carson Beck to shine on a national stage with a deep ball. Of all of the games that I would love to see thus far this season, this is the game that we need to hit those deep opportunities, because they're susceptible to it more so than I think a lot of the teams that we played up. I haven't gone back and looked at everything in that scatter plot graph. I was mostly looking at Missouri and Ole Miss because again, they're very similar. So they're a little bit more susceptible to that deep pass. So I'm looking at Carson Beck to make those connections. I'm looking for a healthy Kendall Milton to be an impact in this game for sure. I'm looking for the offensive line to have a much better game than they did in the previous game. I mean, technically speaking, like if you look at, a lot of these defensive categories, you look at Auburn, you look at Florida, you look at Missouri, Kentucky, like all of those teams have better rush defenses, have better pass defenses than Ole Miss thus far. And so you kind of look at the offensive line. This is a game the offensive line needs to own. They need to own the line of scrimmage from start to finish. They have the horses, like Hunter said, and lean on them would be a nice category for me. Would be great. But that said, I think that they're going to be a little more susceptible through the air than they are on the ground. But that said, they're giving up 137 yards per game on the ground. If I were to tell you before the game started that they were going to give up 137 yards on the ground, would you take that?
Yeah, I'd feel pretty good about that for sure.
On top of the fact that they played 9 games and have given up 13 touchdowns on the ground, that means that roughly they're good for a touchdown and a half a game, roughly something like that. I'm not check my math. I was
told they're beta math.
But yeah, 137 yards and a touchdown or two. I think that, you also kind of layer in that element of Georgia's offense is pretty potent. I know we're going to get to some of the scoring and all that kind of stuff, what we think the score is going to be, but the impact that we're having on offense is where the separation comes in when we have good defense and we have good offense.
Yeah. If we can hit one of those deep balls that we've been so close on, and, it doesn't matter who it is. I mean, we've been close with Delp, close with Smith. I know we've been big on Rah going for the deep ball, and now we got Ladd back. So, but where I was going with that is night game, 7 p.m. kickoff. If we hit a deep shot early, like watch out, because the place is going to explode, and that's just going to get everyone even that more amped up for when the defense is on the field. So that would be incredible.
I need to also add, had Georgia not gotten those 2 turnovers, you look at John. Shout out John. I know he's not on the call, but he rightly pointed out that we lost the net yards per play game. We lost the success rate game against Missouri, and typically when you see those stat lines come up, The big one was, I can't remember. Is it Stats of War that does it Parker that does the did my team really lose that badly?
Yes.
With the separation, like this was the first game this season where Georgia was in the red, I believe, if I remember.
It was. You're right.
We were negative, and what that typically means is that if you're in that negative, you usually are losing that game. The fact that we had 2 turnovers in that game was a big saving grace, on top of many other factors. But like that red zone scoring, like we got to start. We've got to, from a statistical side of things, like in order to start feeling better about this season long term, we've got to start punching in touchdowns in order to be considered an elite team. Basically, is ultimately what we have to have happen.
Yeah,
and playing turnover free ball is part and parcel with that. Like I said, Missouri won by and large the statistical battle, but they lost the turnover battle and they lost the game.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, agreed on the red zone. And I don't know, maybe we'll see top 10 matchup. No need to hold anything back. Maybe we'll see Bobo open up a little bit more in his bag of tricks inside the red zone. I'm not saying trick plays, but I'm just saying like the highly effective plays. That'd be nice to see. All right. Before we move on to the defense, why don't we take a quick moment to remind everyone that season 4 of My God, a Podcast is presented by Oxia Time. So Oxia Time is a custom Swiss watch company. You got to check out their 2021 and 2022 national championship watch collection. You got to go check them out. Multiple designs, multiple wristbands that come with the various watches. You can see all of those over at oxiatime.com. That's AXIATIME.com. Even the cats of Dog Nation appreciate the Oxia Time pieces. If you're watching on YouTube, if you know, you know. But yeah, head over there, check that out. You can use the code MyGottaPodcast to get a presentation box to go along with your Swiss timepiece as well, to display it in your home when it's not on your wrist. So be sure to go check that out. Shout out to Oxia Time. Thanks so much for presenting My Gotta Podcast again in season 4. All right, let's get into the defense. The Ole Miss offense. What we're looking for when Ole Miss has the ball. So lot of playmakers across the board on the Ole Miss offense, which you would expect with a Lane Kiffin team. So Jackson Dart, 160 completions out of 244 attempts, 2,400 yards, 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. But he's also the team's third leading rusher with 334 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. Quinshawn Judkins is a stud running back. The leading rusher was 793 yards and 12 touchdowns. And looks like, I know they've got like a plethora of receivers, Hunter, but Trey Harris, senior receiver, 38 catches for 749 yards and 7 touchdowns. And then Jordan Watkins, 44 catches, 627 yards and 3 touchdowns. The offense is potent. They put up points.
Yeah. I think you kind of hit it on the head there with pointing out Jackson. Jackson Dart is a gritty playmaker. I'd almost reckon it to say he's kind of like he's a more run happy Ole Miss version of what Stetson Bennett was for Georgia the last 2 years. He might make that, kind of like what we saw with Stetson early on in the national championship game against Alabama, dropping the ball. He might make that play, but then he'll turn around and the play that, statistically you're not supposed to make, he'll turn around and make it. And he just hits clutch play after clutch play after clutch play. And he'll run, even to his own detriment. He will not shy away from contact. When he runs, he's looking to initiate contact. And I think the offense kind of feeds off of him. He's going to be, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, if you were to stack up the Missouri offense position by position versus the Ole Miss offense position by position, since that's the most recent game, Jackson Dart is a better quarterback than Brady Cook. He can run a lot better than Brady Cook. within the offense, if Lane got it dialed up, they roll when he's throwing the ball and running the ball. They are rolling. I don't think it's even a question about running backs who's better. I mean, we all know who Quinshon Judkins is and what he can bring. But other than Judkins, you got Ulysses Bentley, who's kind of been really the 1-2 punch for Ole Miss. He's not as, now don't get me wrong, he can be downhill like Judkins, but he's not as downhill as Judkins. I'd say he's more of the slippery kind of running back. Almost like what we saw with last year with Georgia, with their kind of 1-2 punch with the bigger back and the more slippery speed guy. But Bentley can hit you. Ole Miss is going to look to run the ball. They're going to look to use those three to run the ball and use that to open up the passing game. And Tre Harris is absolutely going to be an issue. If they've got him dialed up, this is one of the scariest, if not the scariest games on Georgia's schedule. I don't know if he's as good as Luther Burden, but he's up there. He's definitely up there, and he's got a supporting cast that kind of helps him out. Jordan Watkins and Dayton Wade are playmakers too. They're more of the speed guys, but Tre is that big NFL prototype looking wide receiver who is going to single-handedly make plays. And he can be a game breaker. I mean, he's slowly getting better as the year goes on. He hasn't been totally healthy. In fact, I would go on record and tell you that if Ole Miss would have been a healthy team when they went to Tuscaloosa, they probably would have beat that Alabama team. They didn't have a healthy Tre Harris. They didn't have a healthy offensive line, and the defense was still trying to figure out who they were and kind of what their identity was going to be. And the biggest thing that a lot of people don't really know about is with Lane Kiffin offenses, you really need a tight end who can be physical at the line of scrimmage and block, just as well as, being a threat to catch passes to kind of make his offense go. And they didn't have that for those first couple games. Caden Prieskorn, big transfer to Ole Miss this year, was out injured. I believe he had the same injury that Brock had. I could be mistaken on that, but he was out for the first couple of games, and he came back. Let's be honest, he probably shouldn't have, but because it was Alabama, he played, but he wasn't as effective as he could be. But he's slowly been getting better every week, and I think with Tre and Prieskorn health getting better, that's why you've seen the Ole Miss offense become more consistent on a week-to-week basis in their play, and Jackson Dart really start to emerge because he's got those guys. He's got multiple guys passing and running that he can take advantage of and kind of use to help him out. The weakness, obviously, of Ole Miss's offense is their offensive line. And they've been getting better, but they're susceptible. That's the weak point. That's where Georgia's pressure point needs to be, because if you can get Ole Miss off schedule, that's where things kind of get really wonky really fast for Lane Kiffin's offense. They're all about being on schedule and playing tempo and finding those mismatches. But when you can get them to two really quick plays where they don't have much of a gain and they're looking at a 3rd and long in 30 seconds, that's where it could really get out of hand for Ole Miss.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it's the dart running. Like what I want to see is what can we apply from learning last week against Missouri, and like, can we take anything that we learned from that and apply it to Ole Miss? Because there were definitely some frustrating moments when Cook took off, right? And there was like kind of a parting at the Red Sea, and he's just running down the open wide middle. Like, what do we adjust there? And not having Jamon Dumas-Johnson in there he's the one in there calling the plays. So I think that'll go over to Smile Munden now, most likely, is what Kirby was saying. So that'll be a change there, but gonna see some new faces in there without Jamon. We saw him last week, but we'll continue to see some more of the young guys out there, like CJ Allen, Raylan Wilson. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what the difference you're going to see between the way they played the two is Jackson Dart is an established runner. Like, the offense runs based on him being a pretty efficient ball carrier. I don't think Brady Cook is the same way. He's kind of more of a run if you have to, and he can take advantage of you if you give it to him. Ole Miss is going to be looking to actively weaponize Jackson Dart as a runner in this game, because that's their path to being successful, because it's going to open everything else up.
Got it. Gotcha. JP, what do you got?
So Ole Miss, talking about the offensive line, they are middle of the pack in terms of what they're giving up in terms of sacks per game. They are giving up about a little over two sacks per game, 20 total sacks. They're number 7, actually tied with Mississippi State, actually, for that on that metric in terms of the sacks allowed. This game
never good company when you're in Mississippi State's company. Never good company.
I think that so with that in mind, so you're talking about third downs, right? Like, Georgia is one of the best third down teams in the country. I know those metrics got kind of out of whack. Everything got out of whack with the last game against Missouri, but on the whole, we're really good on third down. So if you can stop them with a sack on third down, forcing Ole Miss to punt, I mean, you're talking about 2 scoring opportunities that you could potentially end a drive on, and it may come down to 2. It may just come down to 2 possessions. You know what I mean? Like, if we can score on 2 possessions that Ole Miss can't, that could be the difference maker in terms of the spread and all those kinds of things. In terms of the defenses that they've been up against, they've done pretty well against other defenses in the SEC. A&M being the most recent, right? It looked like Jackson Dart had a phenomenal game passing.
Yeah, he was really good last weekend
against the number 2 team, against the number 2 passing defense in the SEC. What do you think was different about that game versus some of these other ones, Hunter?
Well, the weird thing about the A&M game was Ole Miss was in a position where they were about to go up 21-0, and they had a blocked so what turned out to be a blocked field goal for return for a touchdown turned into what would have been an opportunity to go up 21-0 into a 10-point swing for A&M, and then all of a sudden, you're off schedule, your momentum is off schedule, and that's the thing you're going to see. And I don't think I can overstate it enough, especially having watched all their games. If you knock Ole Miss off of their script, off their schedule, they have a hard time. But if they're on schedule, and you'll see, look for Lane to try to want the ball first. Georgia's been susceptible, as we've all seen, to that first drive kind of scripted offense.
Yeah.
And Ole Miss has been good in all their games, really, about scoring on that first drive. So that's kind of their strength. They try to jump on you. If they start going fast and they get that first play and then they start moving, that's when you start to see the offense really click, with receivers just running wide open. Dart will kind of extend plays with his legs, and that just they'll start hitting big play after big play. I mean, it could get dangerous for Georgia if they get that first big first down and they start to move fast, and you see that first completion about 10 yards. Usually, with the games that I've seen Ole Miss play, after they hit that first completion, the next one is 25, 30 yards. The next one's to the end zone or to the 5-yard line, and Trey Harris knocks 2 people off of him and scoots up the sideline into the corner of the end zone. They go really quickly when they're rolling, and they score really quickly. And it just kind of hits you real boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. Yeah. I am, this is where I hope to see the environment play a big factor and try to rattle them, see how they deal with the noise. A lot of home games of late for Ole Miss, other than Auburn. So they've only had one away game since the Alabama game, and that was at Auburn. Again, another win, obviously 28-21. But what can we do as fans to disrupt them? It's going to be, night game between the hedges. We're going to have the light show. People will be well lubricated, we'll just say, and expect a raucous crowd. And I know Kirby's been asking for that already, for folks to be elite in the stands, which I fully expect to happen. But yeah, I mean, can we get a false start? Can that help to kind of disrupt them and get them a little bit off schedule? But yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, and
they've been susceptible to that. I mean, and the Auburn game was the kind of the last one that you really saw some, as an Ole Miss alum and a fan of Ole Miss football, when they're not playing Georgia, the Auburn game was really frustrating because they would have spurts in the game where you're like, all right, this game's they're about to blow them out. They're about to, hit the pedal and go on them, and then they'd get that false start, or they'd get that boneheaded holding penalty. And it would just absolutely kill the entire drive. Because like I said, when you get them off schedule, they have a really hard time of getting back on it. So they really are feast or famine. I don't know if any of y'all watched the Ole Miss LSU game.
Yeah.
It was like a shootout. And that's the danger of what Ole Miss can be when they're clicking. But if you get them off schedule, absolutely the crowd will have the opportunity to come into it. If you're looking at 3rd and long, especially on that opening drive, that's going to be the biggest chance for the impact. When you've got them behind the sticks, behind what they want to do, if you can, get them to jump even more behind, that's when the Georgia defensive line, I think, is going to have a chance to kind of pin their ears back and come after Dart. And to his own, it's feast or famine with the whole offense, and it's feast or famine with Dart. If you get him in a situation like that, he's going to try to hold on to the ball as long as he can to make a play, because he sometimes does. But you can take advantage of that if you can get to him. He'll hold on to the ball, and if you can get him, then he'll lose big yards on a sack.
Got it.
It does appear that, to Hunter's point, like even though they're kind of middle of the pack in terms of the sacks, they are one of the worst teams in the SEC in terms of tackles for loss. So it looks like that if you can get to them, that could create some other opportunities for us to take possessions away. They are one of the worst penalized teams in the country as well. They rank 13th in the SEC in terms of penalty yards per game. They're giving up 63 yards in penalties per game. That's worse than Missouri. And I remember Missouri was one of the ones that they were talking about that was heavily penalized this season as well. Another statistical category, and I mentioned this, like the turnovers. I didn't realize this until we were talking through this. Ole Miss, they actually lead the SEC in turnover margin. They're at +8 in turnovers. Okay. Jim, you mentioned the fumbles, the fumbles that they have gained. They're actually number 2 in the SEC. They've gotten 4 fumbles, but they've gotten 10 interceptions that they've taken away, which is actually right on par with Georgia's in terms of the number of interceptions that they have. Ole Miss and Georgia are tied for 3rd in the SEC with interceptions, but Georgia is only +2 on the turnover margin game. So, yeah, there's a lot wrapped up in this. I think that I don't know, like Hunter, would you, if you were a defensive coordinator, would you try to sell out to stop the run and force Jackson Dart to beat you with his arm, or do you sell out and just kind of bend but don't break, kind of like what we saw with Missouri, where you kind of dare them to run the ball and not let Jackson Dart beat you over the top?
I mean, I think conventional wisdom tells you can't let Quinshon Judkins beat you. We all know what he brings to the table, but I think it's tough because Jackson Dart has shown that he can beat you. He can beat you with his legs, and he can beat you with his arm if he has to. So I think it's more of Georgia. I think you're going to see Georgia try to play contain, and then they're going to take their shots at opportune times, try to create chaos and get turnovers. But I think you're going to see a lot of contain, bend but don't break from Georgia, because like we said, Ole Miss has a lot of weapons that are pretty established at this point. And while I don't think they're going to let Judkins beat them, they can't overcommit to not letting Judkins beat them, because Dart and Harris and Dayton Wade are very capable of exposing mismatches in the secondary, especially if Georgia's not manned up. I mean, Ole Miss's offense is built around being a zone killer. Like that's kind of what they do. They find green space and they go to it, and Dart finds them and hits them. So if Georgia's playing kind of a zone defense, I would say if I was defensive coordinator, I would man up and not let Judkins beat me. But I wouldn't be overly firm. I would say let Jackson beat me with me knowing he can beat me, and not sell out on trying to go after him, because then you run the risk of that explosive play, and that's kind of that's their trigger. When they hit one, that's when they go.
Yeah. I mean, I think back to like the first national championship when you got Schumann in there, or actually it was Landing, like yelling at the defense, like, we're not good at the deep ball, and like again, it's a Kirby Smart defense. I mean, we're gonna try to stop the run. I mean, he plays the line of scrimmage game. So I don't know. That was my 2 cents what I think he'd do. But like we talked about in the Missouri review, John, like what you were harping on around, you like our chances with the secondary that we've got. So I think, we should do it. We slow down the run. And
slow down the run being the operative word.
Yeah. And then we rely on that secondary. So
I was gonna say I had one thing that I wanted to interject with the whole defense offense conversation.
Okay.
Ole Miss has had let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 games that they've won this season by 1 score.
Okay.
They won against LSU 55-49. Arkansas, they won 27-20. Shout out Pit Boss. They beat Auburn 28-21, and they just beat Texas A&M 38-35. That is, I mean, dear Georgia fan, like, as great of a season as Ole Miss is having, can you imagine winning these 4 games by 1 score?
Well, I think, I got a shout out to I don't know if I should do this, but like Brandon Adams on Dog Nation Daily, he talked about this today, and this is exactly the point that I think he was making and that you just made. Georgia is the anomaly when it comes to college football. Most teams go into every Saturday hoping that their team will win. Georgia goes into every Saturday thinking their team will win and wondering by how much. So the Ole Miss close games can promise you, from the Ole Miss perspective, that is not even relevant. Like that does nothing to diminish the confidence that the Ole Miss people, the Ole Miss team, for that matter, has in coming into this game, because their whole mentality is just win, right? And I know Kirby preaches that too, but like the reality of it is that Georgia's better than everybody. Like, when's the last time they lost a home game, right? So
yeah.
We're at what, 27
Georgia's got
straight
better
or something
talent.
like that?
They've got better coaching. Like, mindset is a total Georgia mindset of, well, they've only won their games by this many. Well, for 90% of college football, that's all that matters, right? They're not coming in any less confident that they can win this game because they've had close games against Auburn or A&M. They look at it as we're 8-1, and I was saving this for later, but it kind of got brought up. The mentality that I'm from this game, and I know we talked about it in the text thread earlier. Ole Miss, after Alabama beat LSU last weekend, it's a foregone conclusion they can't win the West, right? Alabama's got Auburn, and I don't even know who else left in the West, but I mean, it's a foregone conclusion. Kentucky maybe is their other SEC game. I think Alabama plays Kentucky this weekend.
They do.
So
at Kentucky,
at 8-1, lost to Alabama, which Ole Miss was not healthy, and Lane Kiffin has a mental block when it comes to playing Nick Saban. I don't know what it is. He cannot, and he will never. He'll never beat Nick Saban. He can't do it. He just, something happens to his brain. It turns to mush when Nick Saban's across from him on the sideline.
I think Lane Kiffin is Nick Saban's Shane Beamer.
Yeah. I mean, he'll talk him up. He'll throw jabs at him and then tell him, like, call him the GOAT, like, all week, while throwing jabs at him the whole week of the game. And then he'll go out there and, crap the bed, like inexplicably, like in a way that, maybe they were going to lose the game, but like not like this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So the Ole Miss perspective of this Georgia game is we didn't care. We got to 8-1 going into this game, but the fact that they're now 8-1 going into this game, and it's a foregone conclusion that Alabama's going to win the West. This is a pressure-free. Crosshairs are on the premier program of college football right now at their place. Pressure-free, nothing on the line for Ole Miss. Can't win the West. They can't make it to Atlanta. They're going to give Georgia their absolute best shot with no strings attached to it, and that's how they're looking at this game. There's people within the program, and I've been listening to some podcasts here lately and some player interviews. There are Ole Miss players who are starting to believe that if they can take Georgia out Saturday, they have a backdoor entrance into the playoff the way Alabama backdoored their way in 2017. Like that's their thought process behind this. Nothing to lose, everything to gain. If we lose, giving them our best shot, we weren't going to win the West anyway. But if we can do it, then beat Louisiana Monroe and beat Mississippi State, we sit home championship weekend while Georgia has to go play Alabama and wait and see what happens. That's kind of the Ole Miss mindset right now. So you're going to get an Ole Miss team that's going to play loose. Lane's going to throw the kitchen sink at them. He's got nothing to lose because everybody expects him to lose anyway. This is Georgia's, and I'm not saying this just because I'm an Ole Miss grad and that's my team also. This game scares me for Georgia because of the mentality that Ole Miss has going into it. There's no pressure like there was when they went to Tuscaloosa. Lane doesn't have the pressure on him to try to beat Nick Saban like he does when they went to Tuscaloosa. And Ole Miss is they've gotten better all year, but as a team, they feel like it's time to take this shot and do it. Like they don't care how they got here, but the fact that they got here with only one loss and that one loss is to Alabama, they think that this is their shot and they're about to take it.
Yeah. This would take us incredibly off the rails, so I'm not going to go here. But the only thing I'm going to add on to that is next year it would 100% be the case with a 12-team playoff. Although maybe that does give them more pressure then at that point. I don't know to that point. But again, this is the last season of college football as how we know it, because the 12-team playoff, they're 100% still in that hunt. So,
and that's what I'm saying. You've got an Ole Miss team with nothing to lose, and Georgia with everything to lose.
Right. Well, Georgia, right. I would say, yeah.
What I hear you saying, Jim, is that the regular season matters.
It does.
And we don't need a 12-team playoff.
Exactly. I had one special teams nugget before we move on to the listener questions. That shocking, Ole Miss has a punter from Pro Kick Australia. His name is Fraser Mason.
Does he have any returns, Jim?
Yes, everyone has a return except Brett Thorson. So still the only school in the country with 0 punt returns against the punt team. That was my special teams nugget. I don't have anything else.
I love it. Anything we should know since you've had these close games? Have they come down to final kicks? I don't even know.
Yeah, last week.
Okay. So
A&M lined up to kick the field goal to tie the game and almost blocked it. A partial block. So.
But your kicker has not had to win a game on the last second kick.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. The place kicker is Caden Davis. He is 14 of 18 on field goals, and he's perfect on extra points, 34 for 34.
What's his longest field goal? Asking for a friend?
Don't know. I don't have that. I don't have that level of detail at my disposal right now. So,
can we take a minute to talk about how Woodring is turned into an absolute weapon for Georgia?
Absolutely. Yes, we can. It was we were getting listener questions about like what's wrong with him. When are we gonna do we need
He's a freshman, man. What do you mean what's wrong with him? He's never kicked in a place like that before. That's what's wrong with him. He'll figure it out.
Do we need to go to Zirkle, like all this kind of stuff? So another thing that I heard on shout out Bulldog Brunch, something Kevin Butler talked about or maybe it was Kirby I don't remember where I heard this. I did not realize this. Peyton Woodring was not just a kicker in high school. He was a position player. Like he played in the field and was the kicker. So,
Yes.
so
I know
this
what
is
you're talking about. I heard that too. I believe it was the Bulldog Brunch. But
okay.
he's never had to like go through the process of being in a game where all he does is kick. Like he's used to
Exactly.
playing and then going and kicking. So like the whole mental part of being on the sideline while the game's happening and preparing to do the kick, like that was all new to him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
where literally all you have to do is sit and think about your kick.
Exactly. Exactly.
He's not wondering, oh shoot, do I need to go in? It's third down.
Exactly. So that's totally different. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it was like there was something wrong with his. Again, you think of striking the ball kind of like a golf swing. I think there was something off with his swing, so to speak, and looks like he's figured it out. I mean, that he drilled that one against Missouri. That was a huge kick. Made it a 2-score game there in a pressure situation. In a big time moment in the game that was for the lead in the East. So yeah, man,
that kid was nails for those kicks in the Missouri game. Like,
yeah,
it took some stones for a freshman to run out there and make those kicks.
Yeah, totally.
Honestly, we need Woodring to do some kind of fake field goal or something where he can actually have the ball in his hand, and we can promote the kickers or athletes to hashtag Peyton Woodring.
I like it.
That would be amazing.
All right, let's
Ole Miss has kicked a 56-yard field goal, Jim. That's
the longest.
Okay. That's his longest kick for the record.
Okay.
He's basically 5 of 8. He's 5 of 8 from beyond 40 yards.
I think the 56-yarder was against Tulane in a game that was that was early in the season. I think it was the third game of the season. It was down in New Orleans. And that game was kind of teetering on Ole Miss losing control of it. And he nailed that field goal to kind of put them out front for what would be, the last lead change of the game. So that was not an insignificant 56-yard field goal either.
Right. Got it. Okay. All right. You guys get to hit the listener questions?
I think so.
Okay. So listener questions are brought to you by Working Web Media. So we've talked about, we had our website redesigned in the off season. So be sure to go check out the newly redesigned mygodapodcast.com. We got all our merch on there. The hats that you've seen us all wearing, if you're watching on YouTube, are available on the site. Be sure to go check that out. But if you've got a small business and you need any help with your website or your online presence, be sure to go check them out at workingwebmedia.com/dogs, and then they will know that we sent you their way. All right. First up, friend of the show, friend of the crew, Bobby Wilson. Hey, Jim and John and Hunter. He didn't know, I jumped the gun and solicited questions before we had finalized having you on, Hunter.
Bobby.
Surprise. So what is the best tailgate drinking strategy for a 7 p.m. kickoff? So knowing that we must all show up early and loud.
I'll take this one.
Go for it, Hunter.
Tailgated with Bobby multiple times. Bobby is going to spare no resource in having the A1 stuff. Bobby, a marathon, not a sprint, my friend. It is a marathon, not a sprint. That is the only strategy you need for this weekend, because here's the other thing. If you're going to be hospitable to Ole Miss fans, don't try to drink with them. There's been a lot of pain and torment of Ole Miss football. If there's one thing Ole Miss people can do and win, if you've ever been to the Grove, you know that all you smell is bourbon and pine straw. All right, it's nothing to play with if you go drinking with Ole Miss people. So it is a marathon, not a sprint.
Bourbon and pine straw is amazing.
I concur.
My approach, Jim, actually begins in the days leading up to a 7 o'clock kickoff, because if you don't hydrate ahead of time, you're not gonna win the game. It's preparation, right? Better never rests. But to be honest, like the day of, basically from the moment I wake up, I have a liquid IV or something like that, like where I just prepare my body. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta get some antacid in there. I'm at the age now where I've got to take antacid before everything. Hunter knows nothing about this. He's like, "What is antacid?"
Amazing. All right. He had a question about the secondary, but I think we hit on that. I'm gonna move ahead to John Michael D. Now, this Hunter, you gotta feel honored by this because again, we did not say you were going to be on, but John Michael D says knew that hashtag uniform Twitter would be out and about on this one, but would it be more appropriate now than ever in honor of Hunt the Jones to have a blackout? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Jim's wearing his blackout hat.
Okay, two things I've got on. I've got on a black hat, better never rest. Two, if you know where this t-shirt came from. This is so shout out Small Batch Apparel, if you know. So we're this one for you too, Hunter. Here's what I'm gonna say. 0% chance we come out in black. But
yeah, it's a 0% chance. But it would be awesome.
It would be awesome. But as a
Either
fan,
way,
it doesn't mean that you can't wear black.
And I think either way, uniform Twitter,
yeah,
this has the potential, and anybody who's followed me or seen my tweet, I've already tweeted this out, to be the best uniform game of the year, I think, because Georgia's classic look is top 5, right?
Right.
And I will admit that I am a homer on this one. If Ole Miss wears powder blue helmets with gray pants, and then any combination of jersey, it doesn't matter if it's navy jersey, red jersey, or white jersey, top uniform in football.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know I'm a little homer on that one, but if they come out in powder blue, gray, white, and Georgia's out in red, gray, silver,
yeah,
best uniform game of the year. Under the lights, it's not even close. It's not even close.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting for sure. Where do you stand, Hunter? Where do you stand on the black uniforms? Do you wish that there was like just rules ahead of game? Like,
yeah, I think that's the easiest answer. I mean, the only opposition you see to it is the fake juice argument or whatever from the people who also just like don't like fun. But for Georgia, it's not even fake juice. It's a school color. It's like the school color, the other color, red and black. Like, it's not like Florida going out there in a black jersey when their colors are not black. It is the school color. I think the easiest way to just remedy all this is to say every year we're going to wear this black jersey before the season. We're going to wear it in this game. Preferably for me, it would be the Auburn game. When we play Auburn at Sanford Stadium, you wear the black jersey every year. It's understood. And then when Auburn's away, you just pick another game other than that one. But have it spelled out. You just eliminate all the controversy, all the fake juice, because there's no way that you can even argue that. Like, it's been planned the whole time, regardless of how good Georgia was or how good whoever they're playing was. Black jersey.
Yeah. I would say I would like to see like some kind of tradition like that come about. Like, so for example, Jim, I know he talks about this. Like, the game's usually played in November, right, Jim?
Auburn. I mean, it used to be before people started trying to ruin college football. Sorry.
So all right, so here's what I would say. Like, if we're going to continue to play Auburn earlier in the season or whatever, like, that game should be blackout or whatever. But like, I do think that there's an element. Chase actually called something out that I thought was kind of interesting, because let's do it earlier in the season or whatever. Well, it's like 100 degrees outside in most of the games. So we've actually reached a point now where you've got daylight savings time, right? So like, in my opinion, if there's a game after daylight savings time that's a night game, it's a blackout.
So this weekend.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I agree. All right, let's see. Brett Belding. Actually, so Brett has a traditional two-parter, but the first one was, should we just stop talking about black uniforms altogether? I think no. I think we just proved that in the last question. So I don't think we should. But 0% chance this week. Like, the tweet from the podcast was a joke. Like, come on, people, take a joke. 2. All right, Hunter. Again, lucky to have you here. What is the nickname and the mascot of Ole Miss other than Lane's dog Juice? He said there are Rebels and land sharks and that colonel at one point. It's almost as confusing as Auburn.
Bears. There's bears involved in this too.
Yeah, but almost as confusing as Auburn with the multiple mascots. Hunter, enlighten us, please.
All right, so let me lay this out. This is a point of embarrassment from my alma mater. That we don't know.
Among many things, Hunter.
Among many things, we won't get into those political arguments here in Mississippi history. What happened was the Ole Miss administration back in 2003 decided they wanted to move away from any sort of Confederate imagery, and they did away with Colonel Reb. But even to this day, today, like right now as we speak, they are still the Ole Miss Rebels. Like that is officially their nickname. Like Georgia Bulldogs, Ole Miss Rebel.
Mm-hmm.
That never changed. It never will change, hopefully. As far as the actual costumed person that you see on the field, when they got rid of Colonel Reb, the original plan was to do a vote, right? And this was around my time that one of these votes happened when I was an undergrad. And the options were awful. The Black Bear was the one that won the vote originally, like won. We don't know how it won.
The bear? Sorry, was it the bear?
Yeah, his name was Rebel the Black Bear.
I liked Rebel. I liked Rebel the Black Bear.
I mean, I don't even know, like, I know there's black bears in Mississippi, but it's not like a significant enough amount to make that your mascot. I think they just wanted something. They originally tried to cater it to children, to the younger fans, to the Rebel Kids Club, that kind of thing. Well, then under Hugh Freeze, well, really it was before Hugh Freeze. It was really with Jarrell Poe. He made a play, and I believe it was the LSU game. The year is escaping me, and he kind of threw up the land shark sign after making the sack. And land shark had always kind of been gaining traction up until then as well. But as you all see now, you know, the Black Bear wasn't a hit. Wasn't well received at all. So they decided to back up and punt and go back to, okay, well, the land shark thing is kind of taken off. Let's make this awful, looks like a, surf show cartoon character of a land shark. His name is Tony the Land Shark, that walks around with like giant buff, like he looks like the Crimson Chin from the Fairly Odd Parents if he was a shark. That's what he looks like. And so that's kind of the on-field dress-up mascot that they have is Tony the Land Shark. And he's also not very well received. He's not very popular. Like it's a point of embarrassment, to which gained more traction here recently with Juice. I see that the question talks about Lane Kiffin's dog, Juice.
Yeah.
Who a lot of Ole Miss people say, why don't we just make our mascot, if we have to have an on-field mascot that's not a rebel, a dog like Juice, a hunting dog, because I don't know if y'all are aware, Ole Miss and Oxford is actually not very far from the Mississippi Delta, which is a huge, probably one of the best duck hunting areas in the United States. So a lot of Ole Miss alumni, a lot of Ole Miss people are big duck hunters. And so it's kind of the natural, all right, well, we have Juice out there already. Like, let's just go ahead and kick this giant steroided out shark to the curb and just go full time with the dog, with the lab or the golden retriever, and just kind of make that our, if we have to have a mascot for the kids, let's go with that one, because it's not as embarrassing as that shark. It's something that Ole Miss people can relate to. It's something that, is actually part of culture for people here in Mississippi, more so than a physical land shark, because I don't think that the intent for the land shark sign when making a play on defense was ever meant to go as far as it did with this atrocity of a mascot.
Gotcha.
That's
amazing.
Crazy.
Brad,
I miss Colonel Reb.
What I miss is the Colonel Reb is crying song.
Yes.
Y'all, football. Amazing bit.
Schaefer.
Or Schaefer. Whenever I see that, I'm reminded that Brent Schaefer played for Ole Miss. I always forget that.
Anyway, sorry, I want to just one more thing interject to wrap it all up. Like,
yes,
got to put a bow on this. Like,
okay,
the Ole Miss Rebels,
right,
not the Ole Miss Land Sharks. Like, I know it's fun to like poke fun at.
Right.
You know, if you're the
we are not Auburn.
Yeah, we are not Auburn. We are the Ole Miss Rebels. We have a unfortunate on-field mascot, but we are the Ole Miss Rebels. And pet peeve, nobody calls Ole Miss Mississippi in casual conversation. When you refer to Ole Miss, you refer to them as Ole Miss or, you know, the Rebels, especially when it comes to sports. Nobody says, oh, we're going to play Mississippi this weekend. You play Ole Miss this weekend, and if you're going to be correct in the university's name, you say the University of Mississippi. If we're talking academically, nobody even in the academic world says, "I go to Mississippi. I work for Mississippi. I work for the University of Mississippi, the flagship University of Mississippi." We are not Mississippi.
Right. Got it. Noted. Brett, I hope I'm sure that fully surpassed, Brett, the answer you're expecting to get from that question. Amazing.
I just sent you guys the Colonel Reb song if you want to play it.
It's so good. It's so good. We'll have to tweet it out for those who haven't seen it. All right, let's see. Fletcher Proctor, he said, with the hoop season beginning Monday versus Oregon and Las Vegas, which newcomer are you most interested in seeing on the hardwood? Then he said, oh, wait, this is a football podcast. I will say, for me, my quick one additional thing for Fletcher, Blue Cane, 100% because of his name, because we can say things like Blue, you're my boy. And when he hits a three, we can say Kane is able, the program reference. All right. Since Edwards missed the first few games of the year, odds he's pretty fresh. Will we see his play count go up this week? I don't know that it'll go up this week as opposed to last. I feel like I think at this point we've got a pretty established rotation going on with kind of Dejan and Kendall as kind of the 1-2 punch right now. So I don't know that it'll go up, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like that, you know, the rest early on maybe probably can't hurt, a little fresher. So let's see. Friend of the show, Tim Riley. Biggest threat: Judkins running, Harris receiving, or Dart running? Hunter, you want to take that one? Which one of those three is the biggest threat?
Dart running, because if Dart can run, the other ones are going to be open. Dangerous.
Okay. And then he also wants to know, question number 2, equivalent bottles of bourbon consumed throughout the day, plus or minus 10,000.
Copious amounts.
I'm always in the over for this.
You always smash the over.
Let's see, 51-7 GATA wanted to know if Georgia has the most difficult path to the playoff of the top 8 teams. We do have a tough one. I mean, if you look like from the initial playoff ranking, like everyone other than Georgia Tech remaining on the schedule was ranked in the initial playoff rankings. And then plus, like you were saying, Hunter, I mean, kind of presume should Georgia make it to the SEC championship, looks like they're going to face Alabama, and they look pretty dang good last week against LSU. So I don't know.
Well,
the only thing is,
you got to take that with a grain of salt, though, because LSU's defense is pretty trash. I mean,
it was definitely a defense optional game.
Optional.
Yeah. So
I think the answer to the question is yes. I don't think it's even close. Georgia has the toughest.
Yeah, I agree.
Schedule to get there.
I agree. So take that, all that Georgia has an easy schedule, people. Come on.
Yeah, seriously.
All right, why don't we end on this one with our friend of the show, the Hug Dog, Jason Huggins. Gents, thank you for what you do. Number 1, who has a more punchable face, Lane or Shane?
Shane.
Got to be Shane.
We'll make it a clean sweep and agree on the pod.
At least Lane owns who he is, right?
Yeah.
I do think Lane is funny. Like I
Beamer's in denial about who he is. He's like, oh man, well, like you can't really blame me. I do coach at South Carolina after all.
Lane's the guy we make fun of, and you like at the end of the day, you're like, you know, I could probably have a beer with him. And Shane is just like, God, just shut up.
Right. Agreed. Let's see. Number 2, even though it's a bit manufactured and highly inaccurate, will we hit a new high on the decibel meter Saturday night?
Yes.
I think so. I think so too. I do think it's going to be. I think it's going to be super loud. That's. I mean, this is the biggest. It's the last game. It's the last home game of the season. Back-to-back national champions. Night game. The biggest game of the year at home all season. It's the one we've been building. Like we said, Kentucky was looming large, right? We talked about that all through the summer. Who knew that this was going to be the one in the preseason? So it's going to be wild. And then last for Hug Dog, should I bring the Eagle Rare or Weller 1.5 liter bottle Saturday or both? Go Dogs.
Yes.
Both. Both is good.
The Eagle Rare was there this weekend. I know that. I may or may not have had a pour from that on Saturday.
I like it.
All right. Are you guys ready?
Hunter, you got to dance to this one.
Oh my God!
All right. It is time for Coach's over-unders Ole Miss edition. All right. Let's see. I have the lead. Let's see. I guess, Coach, you don't have to track Hunters, but Hunter, hey, Coach can track Hunters if he wants to. Coach, if you want to track Hunters, you can track them. But you won't be able to catch us in the season standings.
If he wins, you can give the points to me. It's fine.
Okay. All right. But I do hold the lead on the season, so I will go first. Passing. So starting with the Georgia offense, over under 2.5 passing touchdowns, and I'm going to take the over.
Over.
Hunter goes with over. John, where are you at?
Over, under, passing, over.
Okay. Let's see. At least John gets to go before I do on this one. For the Georgia offense, over under 175 rushing yards.
I'm going to go. Yeah, I'm going to go under.
Okay.
I'm going to go under. I think if Ole Miss has a strength on defense, it's their D-line. Like, that's their strength. I don't think it's going to be over.
Okay.
I'm going to go under 2. 175 is a lot.
If you had that line about 20, 30 yards lower, I might have had a tougher time going with it. But 175 is a lot.
Okay. Let's see. Over under 19.5 first half points. I think that's a decent line. I'm going to go. I'm going to be aggressive and go over.
I'm going to go under.
I'm also going to go under.
Okay. Let's see. Over to you, JP. Over to the defense. So over under 300 passing yards for Ole Miss.
Under.
I'm going to say under as well. Hunter, what do you think?
I'm going to say, I don't know. This is a tough one. I don't know how Ole Miss is going to try to attack them. If they're going all out on the passing and they're clicking, you could see it and still possibly see Georgia win a shootout game. I'm just going to say under because I don't have confidence that they can consistently do it.
Got it. Let's see.
Let me just throw this out there since we've already all answered. The only teams that he's thrown for over 300 yards: Texas A&M, LSU, and Mercer.
Okay. Man, that was unfortunate. They waxed Mercer. Our friend's son plays for Mercer. At any rate, let's see. JD2, so that'd be Jackson Dart. Rushing yards, over under 65. And this is my turn. I'm gonna go under. Maybe that's
for the half or for the game.
For the game, maybe that's wishful thinking. Sacks come off of them though.
Over.
John, what do you got?
What was the line?
65.
I'm gonna go under.
Okay. And then JP for you. Over under.
Guys, he's only run for over 65 yards once, it looks like.
Okay.
Against Georgia Tech.
Over under 1.5 forced turnovers for the Georgia defense.
Is it to me?
Yeah.
Over.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, I think if Georgia's gonna come out and make the statement that we all think that they should and will, they're gonna need to have that over.
All right. Man, clean sweep over. Also, that's strategic. Haha, John. Okay. Over under 1.5 Georgia punts in this game. What do we have? 3 punts last week. We talked about that. Oh man, it would be so awesome to be under. I'm gonna go under.
What's the 1.5 punts?
Yeah,
I'm gonna go
Georgia. Over.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go over.
Okay. All right, and then the last one, JP, let's start with you. Game day signs for miscellaneous. Game day signs asking to bring back Pollock. Over under 5.5.
Smash the over. I call shenanigans on tracking this though, because it's impossible to read the signs at game day like with any level of detail anymore.
Yeah, I'm gonna smash the over on this one too, because even my wife was like, "Are you gonna talk to them on the podcast about how they need to bring David Pollock back?"
Amazing, dude. How awesome would that be if the entire like first row was nothing but signs of like, "Where's Pollock? Bring Pollock back. We want Pollock."
Well, what I've loved is I've seen there's a movement on Twitter to have Pollock be the guest picker.
Yeah, skinny sweet.
That would be good. All
That
right.
was amazing. I would throw out that if you're a fan or not a fan, like how many jokes are they going to make at Pat McAfee?
Yeah. There should be all of them. All right, I'll smash the over for solidarity, and so the coach doesn't have to worry about actually counting the signs. So I'll take the over. All right, thanks as always to Coach Trilbill for tracking the over unders and submitting them. Obviously,
Yes,
all
sir.
right. So for final predictions, let's look at the usual things to go into this. So CBC R2 Sam has Georgia winning 33.5 to 19.6. The spread via OddsShark is Georgia's favored by 10.5. The over-under is 59. That gives an implied score of Georgia 34.75 to 24.25. OddsShark has a predicted score, Georgia 43 to 27. The CFB Nerds model has Georgia 34.4 to Ole Miss 23.3. Looking at the scoring impact, Georgia is scoring right around a touchdown more on teams than they tend to give up, and is holding teams to almost 9 points fewer than they score. So if you apply that, it would be Georgia 32.5 to Ole Miss 25.3. It's a big one. John, you asked last week, could Georgia clinch the East against Missouri? Obviously they could not, but if Georgia wins this game, Georgia clinches the East and punches a ticket to the SEC championship. Hunter, like you said, no such things in the cards for Ole Miss. They would need, even if they win this game, would need help from Bama to get there. I'm going to go kind of along the lines of the impact. Looking at that, I've got the Dogs winning this one 33 to 24.
33-24. Okay. So that's actually pretty close. I mean, that's pretty darn close to CFB Nerds. That's pretty close to the OddsShark has us running away with this.
Yeah, theirs is pretty big. I was surprised by that.
I mean, I kind of like that score.
I do too.
I kind of like that score a lot better.
I mean, I could see the path to that score too.
I can see the path to that score. Absolutely.
If you're looking at a close game late, Ole Miss is going to try to press, and that's when you get in the danger of a big turnovers, big six, something like that.
Yeah.
So I could see where that kind of runaway score at the end happens.
Hunter, you want to hit us? Do you have one while John's thinking?
Yeah. I've got two lines of thinking on this.
Okay.
From everything that I've seen from Georgia in games like this, Kirby finds a way to absolutely get those guys up in a way that we don't see on a week-to-week basis for these big games. And every expectation that you have for the other team to come out and be able to be successful like they do or like they have done, it doesn't ever materialize. I mean, look at Tennessee last year. Mm-hmm. This feels like that same game to me. Yeah. This feels like that same build-up to me. I mean, obviously Ole Miss is not number one, but like in this season as a comparison, this feels like that game. So my first line of thinking is to say that Georgia is going to dominate the game, maybe not run away totally with the score, but the game will never be in doubt. Similar, and this is also coming from being an Ole Miss alum and an Ole Miss fan as well. Ole Miss tends to let you down on games like this.
Okay.
This is everything that builds into an Ole Miss letdown game and everything that Kirby builds into a Georgia big game win.
Yeah.
So for me, I think I'm going to go Georgia 27, Ole Miss 10.
Okay.
Wow.
I just feel like that's
the score.
how this
That's the
game
score of the
feels.
Alabama game, wasn't it?
Now, there's absolutely a way where this game turns shootout.
Yeah.
Like if Ole Miss bucks their trend of how they play in big games like this, you could be looking at, I think what y'all have predicted and what the numbers are showing, a closer Georgia win, 31-27, 33-24, something like that.
Yeah.
I got too much Ole Miss in me, too much doubt for what Ole Miss has always done to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how Georgia plays in these games. I don't think it's going to end up being close. Ole Miss might jump out to a quick score and then kind of just shut it down, get knocked off track like they did in Tuscaloosa. I think that's the way this feels with the crowd and with the environment. I could be totally wrong. That's my gut feeling.
I like your feeling better than my prediction.
Yeah, because it's kind of a shootout, right? Like, and I think to your point, Hunter, I think pretty much a lot every team this season has scored on Georgia in the first quarter, right? Which is not normal.
Right.
If it's not all of them, it's a lot of them. Man, I'm looking at that OddsShark predicted score, and I'm just like, man. But then Hunter threw out a number that I feel like I could play around with that. What was Hunter's score? 27-10. I'm gonna go 34-14.
Nice. I like it. Cool. Well, Hunter, appreciate you joining. It had to have you on for the Ole Miss game. We've referred to Ole Miss as the Fighting Hunters throughout this season, at least because we knew they were on the schedule. Shout out to John Tweets. John was supposed to be with us tonight, but was not feeling well, couldn't make it. So John, we hope you're feeling better by the time you hear this. But this has been a blast, as I knew it would be.
Good times.
Absolutely.
Had to get the text thread together, get the crew. And always a good time.
In Kirby, we trust, guys. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.